Good afternoon. Hopefully everyone can hear me out there. Welcome to the Advanced GL class here at Brittenford. I'm Tracy Tremblay. I've been with Brittenford for 4.5 years. Prior to coming to Brittenford, I have 20 years of accounting experience and background working at all levels in the accounting process. I am GP certified and a Microsoft certified trainer here at Brittenford. I've taught this class many times, usually in connection with the whole series of the GL with GL, AP, and AR. What we're doing here is breaking down that training into segments. So last month we had the GL basics, and we're going to build upon that this month with the advanced GL. And the topics that we're going to go over are maintaining records in the GL, setting up fixed and variable allocation accounts and maintaining those accounts, changing, inactivating, and deleting accounts. We're going to create some correcting entries and talk about when and why you would do those correcting entries, create some quick journal entries, some budget import templates, for when you're in your budget season, which for a lot of folks will come up later this summer. And we're going to complete the year-end closing procedures in the GL. So let's get started. We're making an assumption, whether you attended our class with the GL Basics last month, or if you've been a user for a while, now that you know how to enter and post the information in the general ledger, we're going to talk about how important it is to maintain, make changes to, and retrieve this information later. So what we're going to talk about is windows and reports used to maintain records and retrieve information, and some of the options on the utilities pane and which ones are important to you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is correcting posted entries, changing, inactivating, and deleting accounts. A little bit about the Reconcile process and how to reconcile your ledger and subledger much easier. First, let's talk about backing out a transaction. So the first thing to consider before we back out a transaction is the impact it has on the financial statements that you've already printed. The following types of posted transactions can be backed out. Obviously, if it hasn't been posted, you can just delete the transaction. But if it has been posted and you either realize that it was posted incorrectly or maybe it shouldn't have been posted at all, you may want to back that out and correct it. The following types of transactions can be backed out. We can back out a standard journal entry. Sorry, I think we're having some technical. Okay. We can back out our standard journal entries, which is just a straight journal entry into the system. We can back out reversing entries. We can back out clearing entries, and we can clear out quick journals. You can back transactions out of the current year or the most recent historical year. So you can even back out entries from a prior year. Perhaps you're going through an audit or something like that and want to make a correction to a journal entry as part of that. What we cannot back out is a transaction that's been voided, any consolidated transactions, and transactions that have been created during the year-end closing process, which we'll talk about later in this session. Transactions that are posted to a historical year. We can go back one historical year, but we cannot go back beyond that. So let's talk about how that's done. When we open up this general transaction screen here, we can go up and we see a correct button up at the top. This correct button opens up another window, and we have two options here. We can back out a journal entry. Let's say we just didn't mean to make this journal entry at all. We can just back it out. If we did it incorrectly, we need to hit a different account, or we need to change the amounts. Then we can back it out and create a correcting journal entry. So the process for backing it out is the same regardless of which selection, and I'll show you what happens when we're doing a correcting entry as well. So we're going to scroll down here, and we're going to pick a transaction that generated from the GL. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry, I can't find one. Let's go ahead and create one. So I'm going to enter this transaction as benefits adjustment. Okay, so I'm going to enter this. I'm calling it a benefits adjustment, but I've hit the accounting bonuses account. I'm going to go ahead and post this transaction. Okay, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a correction to that entry. This should be my last one right here. And what I'm going to do is I select my journal entry. There's several ways you can find your originating entry. I can either go to a smart list. I can reprint the journal entry from a report, a cross-reference journal report, or let's go over to one of our inquiry screens. We can do a history summary, and in reviewing an account, we find that journal entry. For example, I'm going to look at my accrued expenses account. Okay. All right, we didn't see 2017 on there. There's 2017. Type in accrued. I don't know if you know this trick. If I type in accrued on the top and then I hit my tab, so I've selected description here. I'm finding by description. I type in part of the description of the account and then I can hit tab and it brings it to the top for me. And I will select that, and here I can see my $100. I can click on any one of, let me go back, I can click on any one of these buttons at the top that's blue, and it brings up my detail for that period that's highlighted, and I can see that my journal entry is 3519. I can highlight the journal entry and select, and it pulls up my journal entry. I can see here by expanding that I hit bonuses accounting, and that's not where I wanted it to go. So I'm going to go back to my transaction screen here. Let's see if I have it open. I've got it open down here. And I'm not just going to back it out. I'm going to create a correcting entry so we can see the whole cycle of that. I'm going to say OK. And all I do here, so it gives me a new reference that says I'm backing out journal entry 3519. It's giving it the next available journal entry number for this transaction. So once I post this and I go back to see this on an inquiry on a report, the reference is going to be that it was backing out journal entry 3519. If I want to write more information, I can write it in here. And I'm just going to hit post. And what it does is it advances to the next available journal entry number, gives me the opportunity here to put in a new description. I can change the transaction date if I want to. On here, I can create a batch ID if I need this to be approved, and I can save it to a batch, or I can post it right here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of now calling this a benefits adjustment, I'm going to call this accounting bonus accrual. And instead of $100, this is going to be $1,000. Nice, but we're going to make this $1,000. And I'm just going to go ahead and post this from here. And what I see on my posting journal is the amount backing out with a reference of backing out of journal 3519 and the posting of the new journal, accounting bonus accrual, for $1,000. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. If I go back to my summary inquiry, for accrued expenses, I see a debit for $100, a credit for $1,100, and the net balance is $1,000. If I open up my inquiry screen, I can see all three entries that I just did, 3519, 3520, and 3521. Okay, so that is how to correct a journal entry. The next thing I'd like to talk about is changing, inactivating, or deleting account records. So as your business grows and changes, your accounts information may need to be changed or deleted. Sometimes when you're creating an account, you accidentally hit the wrong number and don't realize that you created the wrong account. Sometimes you've set up a cost center that is temporary for a specific promotion or a specific grant, and eventually these expire, and you don't want people posting to them any longer. So let's look at the account cards and understand what we can change and what we cannot. So I'm just going to pull up, let's pull up this accrued expenses that we've been talking about. So I have certain things that I can change. I only have one thing I cannot change, and that's the account number. So the account number is what it is. If we have time, there are other tools that you can use if you choose to change your chart of accounts numbering system. There's other tools that we can use, but in a day-to-day, month-to-month maintenance, you cannot change your account numbers. However, I can change the description. I can, sometimes when you create new accounts, you find that it pulls from your segment names and you get these dashes and departments and very funky looking descriptions. Well, I can just type over this, and let's say I want to create a new account for 2018 accrued expenses. I can just simply call this 2018 and then create another one for 2019. I'd be creating new accounts, but I want to change that description. Aliases we can change. We can change the category, which designates where it's going to show up in your chart of accounts. I can change the posting type, and when we get to year-end closing, we're going to talk a little bit about posting types and how that is a key field for checking and changing before you run your year-end process. So let's say I want to inactivate this account. I don't want to get rid of it, but I don't want anyone posting anything else to this account. I simply go to inactivate. Because this has a current balance, it says, are you sure you want to inactivate it? Clearly people are using it for the current period or the current year, and they just want to make sure that you've selected the right one. And I say, yes, please inactivate it so that no one can post to it anymore. And this is in no way a permanent change, because all I have to do to reactivate the account is uncheck that box again. Okay. So for deleting the accounts, let's say I just set this up in error. I just set it up 5 minutes ago, and I realize that I put in the wrong number. It wasn't supposed to be 2110. It was supposed to be 2100. There's no activity in it. There is no history in it. There are no transactions in history or current. I haven't created a journal entry that's sitting there unposted. I can go ahead and delete this account. Once I have posted something to it, or it has a balance, or it has history, I can no longer delete it without removing that history. Removing history is a pretty big decision. It changes your whole audit trail, ability for financials that have been run. We don't have a lot of clients who actually remove history. So while that's part of the maintenance process, that would be, if that's something you want to do, that's something we'd prefer to have, individual discussions with you. You can see it right here in the utilities remove history, but we won't be discussing that today. But that would be a way that if you have activity on your GL account and you want to delete it instead of just inactivating it, that would be what you'd have to do. So we're going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to discard any changes we were just playing around with. Also, if let's say you've only added budget information, but you don't actually have any transactions against that account and you want to delete it, you can delete it, but you do get a message saying you're trying to delete something that's got budget information, and if you delete the account, the budget information goes away too, which could impact your budget for the year. So just something to be aware of. We can also change, delete, or inactivate allocation accounts if you're using those. We went over the setting up of unit and allocation accounts in our beginner class. If you want to delete an allocation account, you can do that regardless of if it's been used or not, because the fixed and allocation accounts do not have balances and they don't hold year-to-date activity. They're strictly for pushing information out to other accounts. So it acts as a trigger. You're going to hit the rent expense in your AP entry or in your accrual or however it is you're hitting this account, and then it sort of spreads all your expenses amongst these accounts down here. Okay, so either the fixed or the variable allocation accounts can be deleted or changed at any time. What I'd like to talk about next is Reconcile. And when would you want to reconcile? Our system is moving just a little bit slow. There we go. So here's our Reconcile financial information. Hopefully this is not a disappointment to anyone, but it's not actually reconciling your accounts for you. It's not going to reconcile your accrued expenses or your prepaids for you. What it's doing is reconciling your year-to-date information and your detail information to ensure that the amounts on the financial statements are the same as the totals printed on your trial balance. Sometimes it does happen where there becomes a little bit of a disconnect. So we'll run the reconcile process so that when I go to this summary inquiry for an account, and again we'll use our accrued expenses, that when I run my financials, that this is actually saying 1,000, it's not saying 1,100, it's not saying 100, it's not saying 0, it's saying currency. So what, or I'm sorry, it's saying 1,000. So what the reconcile process does when we select this tool is it goes through your accounts and makes sure that all the formulas, everything is adding up within the GP system when we're doing our summary or when we're looking at the account balances. I can only do one open year at a time. I can't run an open and a history at the same time. Also, and we've had this happen with clients, so I can do both of these batches. This will reconcile your batch headers to the journal entries that are attached to that batch. We've had a couple clients who were in the process of removing a journal entry from a batch, but the batch header still made it look like the transactions were still there, even though they had been removed. So it's not going to post them when you post the batch, but it makes it look like they're still part of the batch, which can be confusing. So I'm going to open up a batch here in GL and show you what I'm talking about. So it's this batch total right here. So let's just pull up a GL batch, which says that I have one transaction and $1,000. So whether I've removed a transaction or I've added 3 more transactions, you know, if I've added three additional transactions to this that are all $1,000, this should be saying 4 transactions at $4,000, but it's still only saying 1 at $1,000. It's concerning in that you don't know if when you hit post, if it's really going to post 4 transactions and $4,000, or or am I only going to get one, because I can see that all these transactions are in there when I'm looking at my GL detail or when I print it, but my totals aren't correct. What I can do is go to this Reconcile for batches, hit Reconcile, and it'll go through all those batch headers and make sure that they're accurately reflecting the number of transactions and the totals within the batch. So next is one of my favorite features, and that is under routines, and it's called the Reconcile to GL. And I'll tell you why this is one of my favorite features, is because it's saved us a lot of time at some of our clients. I had one client who only reconciled their ledger and subledger once a year. And what we did, I think they had a deadline of the next day to be completely finished, looked at their GL and their AP aging, their AP subledger, and they didn't tie. And they had a whole year's worth of transactions to go through. We use this Reconcile to GL feature and had a year's worth of AP reconciled in 30 minutes in identifying exactly what transactions were throwing them off. So if you haven't used this tool for reconciling your subledger, I highly recommend it. So I'm going to pull one up here. I've set this up for payables management. I'm pointing to my AP accounts. So if you have more than one AP account, you need to understand which ones are feeding. You've got feeding to your AP subledger. So we'll go in here. We choose which module we want to reconcile between the GL and the subledger. I'm saying I want to do my payables subledger, and I'm telling it here that this account, 2100, is my accounts payable account. If I have more than one AP account that rolls up to my AP aging, then I'd want to add all the accounts that impact that. I tell it what, so as you can see, I've got my required fields are in red so that I don't miss anything. I'm telling it what module, I'm telling it where I want the output file. The file is going to be named by default is PM to GL, payables management to GL reconciliation, reconciliation number 1, and the date that I'm reconciling, which is period 03 of 2017. And in this case, it's a calendar year, so it's going to be March. And then I can go up here and I can hit process. Usually it takes just a minute. Hopefully I don't have too much information. And it populates it in an Excel file for me. So what I get here is my beginning balance in payables, all the transactions, and what it's doing is it's saying, I see in payables this transaction. For our potentially matched transactions, it's going to say, here's what I have in payables, Here's what I have in the general ledger, and I'm pretty sure these are related, but I can't be positive because like our originating transaction source may not be the same, or there's something just a little bit different or additional for these two accounts. So as you can see for here, our originating control number and my voucher number in my potentially matched, which is why it's questioning it, don't exactly match up. And maybe the balances don't exactly match up. So on my match transaction, it says we are certain that this one and this one are the same in the payables and the GL. And then you scroll down to the bottom and it gives you a reconciliation. So in this case, it's telling me that I am $1.7 million off between my GL and my payables. So what would I have to do to get that to balance? I'd have to do one of several things. Let's see if I can get this minimized. I either need to add some GL accounts to match up here. My subledger beginning balance is this, my ending balance is this. My GL says it's this, my ending balance is this. So likely I need a couple more GL accounts in here to add in. Or the other thing is that maybe I haven't rolled the year and I'm missing in January, so maybe I never closed 2016 and my 2100 account doesn't have a beginning balance yet. So this is only going to pull my balance as of this date, which may not include a beginning balance. But it gives you a really good place to start. And what we were able to do at some clients is all you really have to focus on are your unmatched transactions, and usually that's where you're going to find your differences. So this is a really great tool. May take a time or two for you to completely get comfortable, make sure that you've got the right accounts up here. So we're going to go ahead and save that as a processed one. Our reconciliation 2, maybe now I'm going to do receivables management. And new with 2013, you can also do a reconciliation between inventory and GL. That's brand new with this version of GP. And you can also do bank reconciliation. So prior to this, you needed to do a 3-way reconciliation between your checkbook and your statement and your checkbook and your GL. So this bank reconciliation piece right here takes care of, and I don't have it set up here for my cash account, but you'll match up your checkbook ID here, and then it automatically populates your 1100, and then you choose a location for your file, and we can just put it to there, and then you run this process, and it's going to reconcile, do that 3-way reconcile that probably most of you are doing in Excel. So great new feature in GP 2013, and if you haven't used it, I absolutely encourage you to give it a shot. And the Reconcile report that you get here in Excel can be used for your monthly reconciliation once you get it to tie. So go ahead and save that. it wants to know where I want to put it, we'll go ahead and just put it right there and save that for another time. So this is one of my favorite tools. One of my other favorite features that I think is completely underutilized is in our inquiry, and it's called the account rollup. So let's say I don't want to go to run my FRX or management reporter financials every time I want to get my net fixed assets number. We can also do this for total cash. Anything you want to add together. If I wanted to know my total salaries expense without having to run a financial, I can do that in here. So we're just going to do one column at the moment. And we'll go ahead and call this current. And we're going to do our actuals. The options are actuals, budget. You can do a budget versus actual on a very specific account. You can set it up for a project if you're really tracking it, you know, instead of having to run financials. Again, you can just do this quick inquiry. I can add up to 4 columns. So if I want this year, last year, and budget, I can add 3 columns and do all that. I can also do a calculated column if I wanted to say perhaps last year, this year, and then do a calculated column to add them together. At the moment, we're just going to look at a quick and easy with the actuals. We can do this for either posting accounts or unit accounts. And we're going to base this on the account, the main account segment. So I need to know what just so you know why this does not have a description here, even though my accounts do. This is pulling by segment ID. So you would have to fill this in for your segments in order for the descriptions to show up here. And the descriptions are what default when you're creating a new account, and that's how you get that ugly word with a dash and then maybe a space and a dash if they're not filled out. So I'm going to do a quick inquiry over here. Let's look in our cards at accounts, because these do have our full names. And we're going to find where we've put our fixed asset accounts. So we're going to organize those by account number. So notice if I click on the top here, it changes how my accounts sort when I'm looking for something. So if I click on account number, it does it in numerical order here. If I click on my description, then it's going to change this to alphabetical on the account descriptions, which isn't going to help me when I'm looking for something like fixed assets. I also have these other types if I wanted to sort by the main account segment, which is the middle button. If you've got a lot of divisions and you're, say, looking for salary expense for your divisions, then you may want to do it by main segment, because you know that your salaries expense is something like $6,000. So that's just some tips and tricks on And it also changes up here when I click on the column. So it changes the sort in 2 different places. So I'm thinking I'm going to be in the 1500. Yes. So I'm looking at my fixed asset accounts, which start here with 1500. And I have prepaid insurance. Oh, I'm sorry. I have accumulated depreciation. So what's going on here is I have a 1500 and then a 1505 for the depreciation, 1510, and then the accumulated depreciation. And then I have machinery and equipment. So, and then I have a fixed asset clearing right here. Leasehold improvements. So for me, given my chart of accounts, I'm going to go all the way to amortized leasehold improvements because for me, that's my net fixed asset number. So I'm looking at accounts 1500 through 1710. I could stop here at 1590 as well. And I'm going to show you how to add and remove. So let's say I create this with through 1710 to get my asset roll up, and then I submit these to my accounting manager, and they come back and say, why did you include your leasehold improvement costs? I'm not counting those, and then we can come and take them out. Okay, so that gives us our accounts. We're going to go back to our account roll-up inquiry options that we started setting up here. And I'm going to put in account 1500 through account 1710. And then I'm going to insert those. It does each one independently in here in this restrictions. So I can also now go in, and if I wanted to add a completely different account, and just for kicks, we're going to pick this one. I know that's my accounts payable. But I can pick a random account from anywhere in the general ledger, and that's what makes this roll up so nice, because you're not just looking at a range of accounts. This isn't something that I can do even in my trial balance report. I can't add I can add I can add accounts from a specific range as long as nothing interrupts that range, as long as nothing's in between. But I can't do something like this. So now I can go and I can add 2100 to the bottom of my list. So it's very flexible into what we include. So then I say, oh, 21100, what was I thinking? And I can go ahead and remove that account from here. So then what I can do is I save my net fixed assets. I can pull it up again from here and say inquiry. It brings this up. I'm going to say redisplay. It's pulling up the net change in 2017. This throws me off every time because I actually don't want to see the net change. I probably want to see the period balances. Now, because we have not rolled over our year and we've had no activity in our net fixed assets, and this is a balance sheet account, I've got nothing here. In my balances. I can go back to prior years and say redisplay. Fabulous. And I can redisplay again. This would be much more impressive if I had balances. So I'm going to redisplay. So we have no net fixed assets. in any of the years. They haven't been rolled over. But that is the idea. So if I wanted to let's go in and modify this. I'm going to remove all these because I really do want you to see how this works. I can remove these. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and add some new accounts, and I'm going to add my cash accounts because I know there's been some activity in my cash accounts. And we'll go through this one. And we'll add those to my net fixed assets. We'll save that and pull it up again. And we'll do an inquiry. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's got balances in it. From here, I can also click on this blue drill down, and if you don't remember, anytime you see a blue button, a blue field, you can click and drill down on it. So what this does is it takes me to the detail on that. So for all those accounts that we just added, the 10 new cash accounts that we added to this query, only one of them is having activity. I've gotten a little assertive on this a few times and essentially added every salary account for someone who had 500 divisions. You will bring your system to its knees if you click on this button to see all the detail, because it is a lot of detail. So it's great for getting the balances. If you want to see a roll-up, just be aware that it takes a long time to pull all that information if you are going to start drilling down on it. So I can go here. I can either click on the account and pull up the account card if I'm not familiar with that account. I can go here. I can get the balance, and it's going to bring up my period, my detail inquiry for that period. And from here, I can go back and I can click on the journal entries the same way, that we could if we started with so this takes me to the payroll check inquiry. Okay, so I have the same drill down capabilities. This is a really good tool if you want to summarize information without having to build a report. And I can go in here, if there's something I'm trying to keep an eye on, that's a group of accounts, I don't have to pull out the calculator every time or try and add the numbers in my head. So this is another feature I just really love and don't feel that enough people use. So what else have we got to show you? We can talk a little bit, and we'll go kind of quickly. I think a lot of people understand how to do inquiries, how to pull information. We did just talk about it a little bit in drilling through from our account roll-up and going to our summaries. I've showed you a few tips along the way on how to find accounts. You don't have to click on the advanced search by clicking on these additional sorting options. You can usually find what you want. If I want to find a salary, then I can put in at least most of. So let's say I wasn't sure if it was salary or salaries. I can just go up to the R, hit tab, and it brings me to the first accounts that start with SALAR. So I can select my 6100 and get the information for 2017 on these accounts. I can go to the next account by clicking down here. None of these other ones have any activity. And then I can change when I hit the advance buttons down at the bottom, I can change how they move forward. If I'm going in alphabetical order, I can do it by description, I can do it by account type, I can do it by main segment, or I can do it by account. So if I'm doing it by account, what's the difference between that and main segment? The account is going in numerical order, like if I have divisions 100, 200, 300, then if I'm on account, then it's going to move amongst each one of those. Actually, it's going to move by 000 first and then get to the next salary number. So if I'm on 5100 and I want to see 100, 5100, or 200, 5100, I would change this to main segment so that it's always cycling on this one and not this one. I can also, from here, click to print this inquiry window. So we're going to go ahead and click it to the screen. And it gives me this summary, and maybe I want to attach that to something, or I can send it to someone if my email is set up. And just pull this. I can also send it to the printer, and my printer is not set up on this image, but as you know, when you hit print in GP 2013, you have the option of selecting the printer from any print option to print on any printer that's available. From here, I can go to my detail inquiry. This is going to be the same as if I go to detail inquiry here. If I highlight period 1 and go to debit, it gives me all the detail for period 1. I can drill down through those. If I want to see period 1 and period 2 at the same time, then I can put in through February, hit redisplay, and it shows me both January and February information. So if you're not sure if your transaction was in January or February, but you don't want to have to scroll through the whole year, then you can do just those 2 periods. We also have the option of looking up a journal entry. If I want to reprint a journal, then I can, and let's put in, what did we call it? 3519 was the one we did earlier today with the $100 that went to the wrong, it had the wrong description and it was the wrong amount, and look at this, it tells us it was backed out by this journal entry. And I can go ahead and pull that one up. And I can see that it was corrected by this journal entry. And I can pull that one up. So I have all 3 transactions visible to me on this journal entry inquiry screen. I have the original one I did, the one I backed out, and the one that was corrected. And I can also go up here and I can reprint this journal entry if I need it for records, or I need to give it to an auditor or something like that. Okay, and also on here it tells me that it was backed out by this journal entry and it was corrected by this journal entry. I can also go back in years. This is a new feature, again, in 2013. Previously, you could only view in the journal entry inquiry screen, you could only review journal entries posted in the current year. Now we can go back and inquire on a journal entry from any year and print that out. I don't know how many have been users for a while. If you remember that you would have to go back to the cross-reference report here, which in order to reprint your journal entries. And it's not very it's not very intuitive that cross-reference means journal entry report. So happy to see that my journal entry inquiry screen now lets me actually view all my journal entries and not just the ones that I just did. History summary, so we do still separate doing a history inquiry, history summary, and history detail inquiries versus your summary and detail. So summary and detail at the top are only for open years. Any closed years are in history summary and history detail. They're actually in different tables within your database. So and again, when we're looking at these inquiries, we have the option of a net change and a period balance. So change being what happened within the period, and the balance is your running total. So not used a lot, but you can create budget transactions if you want to make adjustments to your budget without having to recreate the entire budget. If you've created these budget transactions, there's a way to look at your budget transaction journal entries from this window, your budget transaction summaries through this window. It looks a lot like your summary inquiry, detail inquiry, but you choose which budget ID you want to look at. And which account within the budget. So it's not giving you a high-level budget inquiry. It's going to be on an account, but it's going to be on an account basis. So it won't tell you for Department 200, you've budgeted this much. It tells you for each account within that budget. Again, you can look at the net change and the period balances. One other thing I want to make sure that we're getting to is looking at your reports and report options. I have actually seen, so trial balance is one of the most used reports. We have detailed and we have summary. If I want a summary trial balance, let's take a step back here. So there's several things that I can do from here. This option here, option essentially means report name. This is a group of restrictions, dates, accounts, things like that, that someone, whether it was me or someone prior to me or someone in my department, has saved. so that they can recreate that report very easily, that selection. Maybe they need their GL detail monthly, so they want to set this report up so that they don't have to go in and select the accounts, select the date range every single time they want this report. I can set this up so that I can use it again the next month, and I can put insert and then say print, and it will just print the report without me making any changes to it. I know what I'm comfortable with, what I typically do, and I think most of the folks that I work with also do, is I'm going to select this option here, and I'm going to say modify. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily modifying this account, but I'm going to look and see what my selections were prior, when I previously used this. I'm going to include my posting accounts. I'm going to include, well, in this case, I'm just including my posting accounts. Let's say I inactivated an account last month because I don't want anyone posting anything to it, but I'm trying to get a feel for the activity for this year. Would I want to include my inactive accounts in that query? Yes, because they actually have transactions that are going to roll up to my financials that impact the performance for the year, and I need to be aware if there was any activity on those. There won't be any new activity because it's inactive, and therefore they can't post anything to that account, but I can see prior to it being inactivated if there was activity. So I want to go to an open year. If you ever open up one of these options that someone set up previously, it's going to default to whatever they set up. For us, 2002 is not one of our options for an open year, but that was an option when this demo was first set up. So now if I go to open year, I leave this at open, and I do the drop down. My options are 2014 through 2018. These are the only years that are open at the time. I can go to history, and my history options are 2010 through 2013. And I can also just say, I just want this for the current year, whatever the current year is, which is going to feed off of my system date down here. So if I select current here, then I'm running 2017 reports, because in the world of our test image here, it's 2017. Okay, so I want to create an account restriction that is going to give me all my cash activity. I'm trying to reconcile cash for the previous month, and I want to include all the cash accounts, or maybe I just want to include my operating account. Or maybe now that I have that Reconcile to GL feature for my bank accounts, I don't care about my cash accounts at all for running a trial balance, because I've got everything I need over there. But we're still going to go with selecting our cash account. So there's a couple different ways I can do that here. I can choose account and put in the full account code. Oh, look, we're sorting by description, so we're going to go back to account number, and I can see that these are all my cash accounts all the way down to here, but I want to include cash suspense because that's going to impact my cash account as well, or my cash reconciliation. as well. So I can either do just one account and insert it. And again, remember with the account roll-ups, what we talked about was the ability to, or the inability to insert another account. So let's say I want to look at my operating account, and I don't want to look at all these foreign accounts, but I also want to look at payroll. So I try and select the payroll account here, and then I want to insert that because I only want 2 of them. It won't allow me to do it because I already have an account restriction here. So we can only choose, that's one of the limitations on this trial balance report if I'm just looking for balances and activity. So I'll remove this. I know for the current year, well, I don't know, but I'm thinking for the current year, I don't actually have any activity in these bank accounts, so I'm going to be a risk taker and go ahead and put in cash operating and cash payroll. If I get too much information, I can just always redo this and save the report. Redo which accounts selections, or maybe I want to do a separate one for my operating and my payroll accounts. I always check my destination. I don't want to send a 200-page report to the printer if I don't have to. So I like to default to screen and say OK. And if we have time at the end, I'll show you how to save your restrictions. Okay, so we already checked that. I can also say ask each time to make sure that when I hit this print button, it's going to pop up saying, are you sure this is where you wanted to send it to? So if I do not put in any date restrictions, it's going to give me all the activity for the current year, or whichever open year that I select, it'll give it all to me. In this case, I don't want all of it. I just want to see what happened last month. So I am going to put a date restriction. And there's a couple different options here. I can say specifically, we're looking at April of 2017. So I can put in the dates March 1st through March 2nd, or I can make this a little more flexible so that I don't have to change this every single month, that it always just by default gives me the activity from the previous month. So I'm going to select beginning of previous period to the end of the previous period, and I'm going to enter that as a restriction. So with that, I don't have to go in every month and say, 1st of March to the end of March, or 1st of April to the end of April. It just automatically knows when I'm in the following month that that's what I'm looking for. Okay, again, I'm going to say, please show me the inactive accounts because it's really important for me to know if there was any activity on those. I don't want to include any that had 0 balances because if there was no activity and there's nothing in there, then I'm okay with not seeing those. So then I'm going to hit print. I've defaulted it to the screen. I asked it to ask me each time so that I don't accidentally send it to the printer because I don't like doing that. And I say, okay, it's going to print it to my screen. And here are my account balances. So you're probably saying, why didn't I get any detail? Well, I didn't get any detail because I asked it to run a summary report. So this is just giving me my account balances, my beginning balance, my ending balance, which are probably incorrect because we haven't rolled over the year. But for the beginning of the period, I was looking at this balance here. At the end of the period, this is what I had left. So if I'm doing a reconciliation. Maybe I just want my beginning and ending balances, and then I'm going to get my information out of a smart list so I can send it over to Excel. Or, so, oh, and then I want to save this as a cash report. And sorry, I just saved that as the demo report. Also be aware, because we've had this happen at clients too, where they got very upset that their accounts or their reports change. The report's not changing. It's someone doing what I just did, and that you opened someone else's report and you made changes, and then you hit save, and you've just adjusted what someone else put in there for their own personal reporting. So it's always good to be aware of that someone else may be using the report that you're changing. So I can also go into detailed and do the same thing. I can create that same report. This time I'm going to create a new one because I don't want to write over the demo. And this one I'm automatically going to call this cash. I'm going to look at posting accounts, inactive accounts. I'm going to look at the open year of 2017. This is where it defaults to. I don't have the 2002 this time. I'm going to put in my date restrictions, beginning of the previous period to end of the previous period. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to check my destination. This time it defaulted to printer. We're going to say ask each time. We're going to say OK. So now we want to put our accounts in there. We're going to do the full account, or this time I can also go to segment ID. It's going to say what segment do you want to sort it on, or do you want to do your selection on, and I'm going to say the main account. I could also do department. Let's say I want to see all the activity for department 200. I can just put in 200 and it'll bring up every bit of activity during this period for department 200. Let's stick with what we had originally chosen, which is our cash activity. And I'm going to go to account. My accounts are 1100 to 1110. I'm going to go ahead and insert that. I'm going to choose my destination is the screen. Again, I asked it to ask me. Then I hit print. And here I've got all my detail. So limitations with this are that I cannot send this to Excel like a smart list. I can print it. I can send it to the printer. I can save it as a PDF. I can save this as a text file. Let's look at some of the options we've got here. If I go back to destination and I say I want to save this as a file, I'm going to tell it where I want to save it. Let's say I'm going to put it on my desktop as cash March of 2017. I can save it as any one of these types of file. Tab delimited or comma delimited is the best if you want to pull it into something like Excel. If you've got Adobe or a PDF writer installed on your machine, then PDF writer also shows up on the list. So I can choose, as you can see, I can choose to do it to the file and the screen. I can choose all three if I want. And then I say OK. I like printing to the screen because if it's a super big report, then it at least lets me know that it's finished. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and it says, do I want to save changes to this report? I'm notorious for forgetting to say save, so I appreciate that it asks me. So I'm going to say save. And then next time I come in, next month, when I go to do my cash trial balance or my cash reconciliation, I can just print on this. I can either say insert, because I know that it's going to give me the information for last month, or as I typically do, I just like to see it one more time. I'll open up and say modify, even if I'm not modifying anything at all, just so I can double check again. Yes, these were the accounts I wanted. No one has gone in behind me and saved over the information that I saved. And no, I don't think we have a way of tracking who changed your report. So you'll just have to make your changes again. And then I can print it again and everything like that. And just so you can see it on the desktop, this is my cash March of July 2017 that I just sent. So not pretty, but it will do the trick for you. Gives you the information, all the information you saw in your trial balance report. Okay, so just so you can see what that looks like, you can also export the same information out of SmartList. Alrighty, moving along. So you can also click report groups if you want to, if you've got a set of reports, trial balances. Let's say you wanted to set up a separate trial balance so they all get their own page for each cash account. And you'll call one, cash operating, cash payroll, cash German, but you don't want to have to open each one and print them at the same time. You can go in and set up these groups, and then you select the reports that you want to put in there, and then run them. So we're going to go into our trial balance reports, and here's our detailed cash. I can add summaries into there as well, and then I insert it and I just print it. So super easy, no going in and changing anything. I've already set them up, for the monthly dates. So just another way to make your life easier using the system and the tools that it's got for it. You can easily go in. If there's one on there that you didn't want, you can go in and remove it from there. So we've also got another way to quickly rerun reports. If you're not familiar, and there's a lot of times people don't use the options over here on the left in our finance pane, you can go in here and click on report list. And what this is going to do is show you all the reports that are available to you. You can put in filters. Sorry, it's loading all my reports now. And for you, the first time you do this, this may take a little while. If you just want to see your Dynamics GP reports, then you can click on just Dynamics GP, and all the ones that you have set up will just show up in a row. Sorry, I've got some in here that it doesn't like. So I've got some SSRS reports in here. That it hit. So what I see here is the types of reports, what series they're in, some different categories. I can also filter by what system they came from. It's a little clunky to work through, but it may be an option for you that you prefer over pulling from all the menu options, and just a way to show you. So I can put in a type of restriction in here, and it'll give me my trial balance reports that are out there. So here I can see the cash detail that I just set up in my list. Here's the other demo report. We've got the summary demo report that we set up before. So just another way to see all your reports and a few less menu clicks for you if you run a lot of reports. Then that's a way to do that. If you've got some Smart List favorites that you've set up, you can pull them from here instead of going to Smart List up here. You can also see some of your management reporter things in here. I can look up my assets. They're a finance report. I can see my financials, I can see account listings, so just so you know how this works. So this financial, if you start exploring on some of these menu options and you just want to get back to the screen, then you click on financial at the top and it takes you back to that screen. So we've got about 30 minutes left. We wanted to talk about some budget import templates and how to complete the year-end procedures. So I wanted to make sure that we get to that. Budgets are actually under cards. So it's right here under the cards option. I can also go up here to cards, financial, and budgets. Doesn't matter which way you get there, it's the same. So I have a few options here. We're going to create, in this case, we're going to create a new budget, and I'm just going to walk through the process with you on how to create a new budget. And we're going to use the budget wizard for Excel, which I think is a little more intuitive, and it also gives you the ability to edit in Excel, which is a much more familiar platform. It allows you to see all the accounts at once and your total budget at once, versus when we were looking at these budget summary screens, you're just looking at one account at a time. So let's go to the budget wizard for Excel. We're going to go ahead and click next. We're going to enter a budget ID for this budget. We're going to create 2018 budget. enter a description for this budget. I'm going to give a description of 2018 budget original. Okay. How to base this budget. What it's going to do is say, what do you want us to base this on? We're going to say base it on the whole fiscal year, not just the date range. Select the date range for the budget. I want to do this. I know I'm only a few months into 2017. I'm going to say go ahead and base this on 2016. I know that's not conventional, but because we should have a little more data, actually let's just do it on 2017. Then I've got some options here: open year percent, other budget percent, historical year percent. So if you click on each one of these, it tells you what it means if I say open year percent. So if I click on open year percent, I'm going to calculate the new budget on the actual balances of any year that hasn't been closed by increasing or decreasing the open year balances by a certain percent. So if I want to say 10% over 2017 or 10% below what we did in 2016 because, business has gone down, we've reduced our staff, then we would base it on that. Other budget percent means I'm going to take last year's budget and increase or decrease it based on the budget, not what actually happened. I can also look at historical years and base it on that if I have, if I've closed the year already. And then we have blank budget, which just gives you account numbers all with zeros if you don't want to taint any budget creativity with, populating the numbers. So I don't have a 2017 budget, so I can't base this on an other budget year, so I'm going to look at my open year. It says, what open year do you want? Because I've got all these. I'm going to pick 2017, even though I know it's not complete. And we just released a new product. Let's be really assertive, and I'm going to say increase by, that's not 100, that's 10%, okay? And I'm going to say next. It will also put in actual from other years. So we've got open. We're going to look at 3 years. So we're going to base this on the actual for 2017, but I also want to see what happened the 2 years prior to that, so I can add those in. I don't want the balance sheet accounts. I'm just going to budget for P&L for this exercise. And then I have the option of saying all accounts, or let's say I'm just creating a revenue budget. I can look at this, or maybe I'm just creating for a division. So, oh, sorry, I don't want a division. I actually want a department. So I'm going to do administration because that's my group. And I'll go ahead and insert that segment. And then I can also go to an account grouping as well. So I'm just going to leave it at this. For now, I'm going to go to the next button. And it says, here's all the accounts we're going to include in there. I can go through and say, no, this is no longer a valid account. or I can just say, looks great to me. I can add accounts if we've added new accounts. And this is the tricky thing about the budget wizard for Excel. If you add, if not adding it here, but if you add the account in your Excel spreadsheet and you upload it back in, and it doesn't exist in GP, then it doesn't tell you, it just doesn't add it, and then your budget's out of balance. So there's a little bit of a reconciliation process. So I'm going to create a new workbook because I don't have an existing one. I say next, and I say go ahead and finish. Now, just a warning to some of you, sometimes it appears that this has locked up your system because somewhere back here in GP, instead of coming to the front, there's an Excel window that's going to pop up, and it pops up somewhere in the background, and then it doesn't let you do anything. It doesn't let you do anything. So we're going to go down here to Task Manager. And see here, so this is a really good troubleshooting tip because 9 times out of 10 this is going to happen to you. This Save As button pops up in the background and you can't see it, and then you can't move anything. So I'm going to do that again. Start Task Manager. And then usually what you end up doing is killing GP so that you can get back in. Because we can't get to that window. Sorry about this. Okay, so what that's going to do for you when you get it to work is it's going to create an Excel spreadsheet that has some rows across the top. It's going to have your periods across the top. It's going to have your account numbers down the side. And you just fill in your numbers. And then you're going to go back into your budget cards. And you're going to re-import from Excel that budget that you just created and adjusted. So I can create a new budget, or I can select one that's already here and import my, so I'm going to create a new one. And my 2017 budget should already be there if I had finished the export. Okay, so we pull it all in to GP, and I apologize for not being able to finish this demo part for you, but then I can go in and use that budget in my financials It'll be budget 2017. Or 2017 budget. I can do reports on the budget. I can do inquiries on the budget. Okay. Period end procedures. So when you get to the end of a month, there's several things to do. We have what we call a soft close and a hard close. A soft close is done at the end of every month. And what we're doing is we're going into tools, setup, company, and fiscal periods. Now, it's very likely that you've got security restrictions on who can go in and close these fiscal periods, because what this window does on your financial, sales, purchasing, inventory, payroll, and project, even though we're at the moment focusing on the financial series, you want to make sure that you're closing your sales and purchasing as well, because they do impact your closing on your posting to your GL. So we can go back to some of these other years and see in here we haven't closed any of them. And what that means is that anyone can go in and post to a prior period. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you've posted all your transactions in all your modules, because when we go in here and we say close all, what it does is it means it locks down these periods so nothing additional can be posted to them. I can then go to 2015 as well, and I'm going to close all of them. I'm going to go to 2016, and I'm going to close all of them. So no one else can post to these. If I'm still in the process, I know I'm in March of 2017 at the moment. Maybe I'm still wrapping up my audit. I may have some adjustments for December. All I have to do is open this up, and to open it up, I'm simply unchecking this box. That means I can now post a transaction. So if I need to do an adjusting entry, I can open this up as long as I haven't. Well, we can go one historical year back. We can also go periods forward. As you'll notice, we have 2018 is open, and that's probably one that I also want to lock down. Yes, it's open. Yes, it's out there, but I don't want people posting things either erroneously or on purpose to future periods. So I want to make sure that these are what I call lockdown. The system calls it closed, but it's truly a lockdown process. You want to make sure all your transactions are processed. You probably want to print your trial balances so you know what your official was when this was processed, or when it was locked down, so that you know if there were any changes. There's also a mass close process, which is down here, this button down here. I'm going to go to a prior year just to show you. And notice I don't have to hit save every time. It's just I select these, I close all of these periods and series, and it just sticks. And then I say OK at the end. This is also where I would set up new fiscal periods, which I think we went over in the beginning, but just in case you weren't aware. So I also have the option, if I don't want to just shut down the whole series, but I want to just shut down certain components of the series, I can go to this mass close, and I can do just certain periods. I can say, okay, I still want people to be able to do bank transaction adjustments, or, we still want to be able to do the currency revaluation, even though I've closed the series. I still want to be able to do these couple of things within here. So I can go to whichever purchasing. I don't want to cut any more checks. I don't want to enter any more transactions. But maybe I want to allow someone to void something. So I can say that it still appears as if it's closed, but then I've got some functionality that's still available to people, but everyone else, or to people who need to do their currency revaluation and things like that, but that's the only thing I'm allowing. Okay. So that's what we're going to do at the end of each period, is just lock it down. We're going to run our trial balances, we're going to run our financials, and that's all we need to do system-wise for our year-end close. I also then will run a year-end close process, which is going to be under my routines, and it's called year-end closing. Now, keeping in mind that the year-end closing of the GL is the last thing that we close. It's the last thing we close in the process of our year-end closing. There's a very specific order, and we have blogs and information on the process of Reconcile, or closing out GP for the year. You're going to close out your financial, your purchasing. You're going to close out your AR. You're going to close out your fixed assets, any inventory. And then the last thing we do is our year-end closing. And what that does is it transfers all your open year information for each account in the chart of accounts to account and transaction history. So it also prepares the accounting system for the new fiscal year, and it's going to take your balance sheet accounts and roll them forward to beginning balance, and it's going to take your P&L accounts and roll them into your net assets or your retained earnings, however you have yours set up. So I have one really important thing that I stress that you do before closing out your year and wrapping this up. And you can either do this with SmartList, or you can do this with an account report to look at your chart of accounts. And that's to make sure that your balance sheet accounts are set up as balance sheet accounts and your P&L accounts are set up as P&L accounts. So my favorite tool is to use the Smart List for this because I can really restrict it to the type of accounts. So by default, I get a chart of accounts here with a posting type and a description so I know how to translate this. For me, typically, my asset accounts are going to be somewhere between 1,000 and 4,000 or 3,999. So what I want to do is I want to confirm that all of these accounts going up to 3,999 say that they're balance sheet accounts, because I don't want any of my balance sheet accounts to roll into my retained earnings, which is this 30/30 account. So just looking at this, I can see that they're not. I also want to make sure that any P&L accounts that we've set up are not set up as balance sheet accounts, because balance sheet accounts roll forward to beginning balance and do not roll forward to, they're not going to roll forward to retained earnings. So let's look at this account right here, which is in the range of my P&L accounts, but it's a balance sheet. I can see from the description that it's square footage, and to me that means it's probably a unit account. My unit accounts are not going to, and if I click on it, this is one of the reasons I love to use Smart List for this, is I can click on that account and I can see the card. I can see that it's a unit account. My unit accounts are not going to roll, so this is perfectly fine. The other thing I like to do with Smart List is I like to put in some search definitions that say something like, if my account number, or usually my main account segment, is greater than 3,999, it's okay that 3,999 is not an account that has an account type. And if you look over here, account type is the P&L or balance sheet. I want to know if any of my P&L accounts, posting type, a posting type, not account type, is equal to balance sheet. I want to know about it. So I've got some revenue accounts here and some rent expense accounts here that are listed as balance sheet accounts. This is so easy to do because when I create new accounts in the account cards, they automatically default to balance sheet. So if you're just excited about getting your new account set up and you got the right description, you got the right account, and you don't scroll down, so let's open this one up. It's account. It is a posting account. This is where it's going to default right down here, and if you're not familiar with this, and trust me, the first time you close your year and roll your revenue forward as a balance sheet account instead of a P&L, you'll never forget to check this, but it is so easy to miss. So that's why we run this before we run the year end. We run this query, and I even save this as a favorite. So I can simply at this point go in and say, nope, that's a P&L account, and I save it. Another great reason to do this in Smart List. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to save this as account with wrong posting. I can check this throughout the year. I can also set this up as a reminder that says anytime this is greater than 0, meaning anytime I have a P&L account that shows balance sheet, I want to pop up a reminder. So I say okay with that. I can click off of this. I can just click on it again. I can see all my accounts again. I can go into rent expense. Oh, this is a variable account allocation. So we may want to put in additional information, but as long as, so maybe we want to show this also as account type is not equal, or let's say account type is equal to posting account. I only want to see the ones that are posting. So these are all my posting accounts that are showing up as retained earnings. This is supposed to be a sales, a P&L account. I'll go through and I'll clean all these up until I've got nothing left on my list. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to this year-end closing. I also want to run my trial balance before I do this. I want to make sure that my new fiscal period is set up, which in this case we've done that. Again, we'd go to Tools, Setup, Company, and Fiscal Periods. To set up my new fiscal period, I would just go to type in 2018. It's going to give me a first and a last day of the period. I say calculate. And it goes ahead and calculates that. Now, this has already been done for us in this particular case, so we don't need to set that up. You always have to have your next period open before you close the last one. Now, for us, when we go to close this, we're going to have to close all the way back to 2014, which is not a historical year. And then we'll roll them forward so that we get good beginning balances. Always make a backup before running your year-end process. Run your financials so that you have those. Then you're going to go into your year-end closing. Make sure that your retained earnings account is the retained earnings account that you want to hit. There is also an option so you can remove any unused segment numbers if you've accidentally typed in a wrong segment code. If you want to maintain your inactive accounts, then you're going to check this box. Otherwise, then you won't have them the next time. We can also set this up to close to divisional retained earnings. You'll get your last closing date, and all we're going to do here is we're going to say close the year, and then we're ready to start on the next year. It runs through a process that gives you a year-end closing report that says here are the balances that we've rolled forward, and here are the balances we have left. That we put into beginning balance, and your year is closed and you're ready to go. And that takes us right to the end of our session today. Does anyone have any quick questions? I know I'm not leaving a whole lot of time. If you have questions. Okay, looks like we had a question, but I answered it throughout the process. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next month. We'll have our AP Basics class and hope you can join us for that. Thank you so much.